So SB 2095, what is it? It creates in Oklahoma a state licensing system for commercial waterfowl and sandhill crane guides and outfitters. It applies to people guiding hunters for money. So this does not apply to the average hunter at all. This is strictly for guides guiding for money. It gives Oklahoma Department of Wildlife and Conservation authority to oversee commercial guiding. And of course, it's absolutely mind-blowing that you don't have to have a permit to be a guide in Oklahoma, and you don't in Kansas. I mean, just think of all of the things that you have to have a permit for. If you put a trolling motor on a kayak, you've got to register it. In fact, in some states, they're making you register all kayaks, whether they're motorized or not. I mean, just think about the different things that you have to get that are regulated. And for some strange reason in Kansas and up to this point, Oklahoma, guides are just, no, you don't need a permit, no regulations. We don't need to know what you're doing. We don't need to check up on you, nothing. Just do whatever the hell you want. And I'm all about freedom. But I'm also, when money are changing hands for a resource like waterfowl, we need some oversight on that. We need to be a little bit into those people's business, in my opinion. And out-of-state guides that come in, we need to know how many guides we have on the landscape. We need for them to have some basic regulations. They need to have insurance. They need to, I don't know if they need to be drug tested or not. That would be a possibility. They need to have CPR training, and their books need to be open. We need to know what birds they're killing, how many birds they're killing, how many people are coming in. And to me, that makes reasonable sense. So it establishes qualifications and standards for guides. It allows the state to regulate and enforce those standards. It provides consequences for operating without a license or violating the regulations of the state. So it just creates accountability for commercial guiding business. And I think that most of you hearing that are probably like, amen. Amen. So why does this matter? Another state recognizing commercial waterfowl guiding, it has become an issue in these states. So for Kansas, for an example, you will hear a lot of people state, a lot of managers at the KDWP areas, a lot of just lifelong Kansans will say, the number one issue is not the non-residents. The number one issue is guides and outfitters, because they are going around and they're buying up all of the private land. And so 30 years ago, it was much easier to be able to get access on private land than it is today. Well, that pushes more pressure to public land. And so then when we have the pressure problem, a part of that is because of guides. I have heard stories of in nowhere, Kansas, out in the middle of nowhere, where friends of mine have been on a hunt on a pond that they have had access to and that they have been hunting for years, and some out-of-state run-and-gun guides, because you get these guides that don't have lodges, they don't have permanent locations, they follow their birds, they come in from out of state, and they're just grabbing people and going all over. So they're just running all over the state, and there's many of these guys that do that. Normally they're kind of in their early 20s and they're trying to be entrepreneurs, and you know, I get what they're trying to do. It's nothing wrong with what they're trying to do, but if they sit over a pond while you're hunting and watch you hunt it and watch you have a good hunt and then try to go backdoor you and get permission and block your permission from that place, that obviously creates some problems for those of you that hunt public land. So you're hearing more and more stories like that. So we just need regulations, and Oklahoma has stepped up. Oklahoma has stepped up and gotten it done. There has been a big growth in the commercial guiding, more leased ground, more hunting content that they put out on social media. And I'm not obviously saying that all social media content is bad, but these are just the things that drives into it. More traveling hunters, creates more pressure on public land, more competition for quality hunting. We just need to have some oversight of what these guys are doing when we're talking commercialized hunting. I don't know whether Kansas will ever do this or not. Some of the things I'm going to say right now are considered hearsay. So I have friends that are connected to people in KDWP. And I talked to 2 different friends that don't even know each other that are connected to people in KDWP. And this was a year or 2 ago. And I'm getting the same stories from these 2 people, and the exact same stories from these 2 people. And so a while ago, the Kansas Department Commission was completely overhauled. They came in and dumped everyone on it and brought in their own squad. And my understanding is that this squad of people, and I'm not even going to put names on it because this isn't like, I've got 2 different sources telling me this, but I'm not going to throw out names of specific commissioners. A good portion of the commissioners in Kansas are, I don't know if working for is the right phrase, but are definitely in the pocket of big money outfitters, big money guides. And it's funny because this transition in the commission happened right at the time that the KDWP was starting to talk about baiting for deer and chronic waste disease. And so they had a meeting and where they were just discussing, does deer feeders create a problem? Is it contributing to the chronic waste disease? They weren't talking about legislating anything. There was no proposals. Obviously, down the road, they'd say, well, let's just have a discussion about it. If we determine it's a problem, then maybe down the road we look at making some regulations and changes to putting up deer feeders, that kind of thing. And the guides lost their minds over this thought because they can shoot a lot more deer and have a lot more clients flow in and out if they can feed deer and get them coming to a certain spot. And they lost their minds, and they got a politician involved that made threats to the KDWP. And I know that's for fact because I saw this statement made of something to the effect of, if you pass this, you'll never get another dime. I mean, they went nuts. And lo and behold, the whole commission was cleaned out for a new set of people, some of which are closely connected to guides and outfitters. And again, this is hearsay, but I was told by 2 different sources that there was a well-known outfitter that made the statement, no game should be harvested in Kansas without money changing hands, was the quote that I heard was made. And this person is tied to a politician that I won't name, and that politician has multiple commissioners in his pocket. And so when you hear things and I reported on this if you didn't hear the episode, when you hear them talking about Kansas and non-residents regulations, and one of the commissioners comes up with the idea that let's take 25% of our public land and make it only so guides can use it. And then non-residents would have to go through the guide. So his idea that if a non-resident came to Kansas, the only way that they could duck hunt in Kansas would be to go through a guide, and those guides would be handed 25% of our public lands. This was, he actually said this. Now, this is not hearsay. I've got it recorded. I played the recording on an episode. He made this statement. He brought up this idea. 25% of the public waterfowl land in Kansas would be guide only. So lifelong Kansans, no one else would be able to hunt it except for guides. And those guides would then service resident and non-resident alike, and non-residents wouldn't be able to hunt anywhere other than that 25%. So when I'm hearing from multiple sources these stories, and then I watch the KDWP meeting, and that's one of the ideas, kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Kind of makes sense. So I don't see in the future Kansas doing anything like this. I don't think they're going to be able to get it passed. I would be shocked if they even discussed it. That's why at these meetings, every single day they have a meeting every 2 months, and it's on YouTube. You can watch it. You can see it. And every 2 months, they talk about waterfowl. Do you know what they don't talk about? When they talk about waterfowl, they don't talk about restricting the guides and outfitters. Surprise, surprise. So that's how politics work. And so bravo to Oklahoma for doing this. fingers crossed that maybe there's some good guys on the Kansas Commission. I don't know them all. There's 2 or 3 that I could throw names out that I believe are bought and sold. But again, it's hearsay, but it's coming from 2 independent sources that don't even know each other, given the same story. They are connected to people within that group of no. So take that for what it is. Take that for what you will. Bravo to Oklahoma.